Hey besties, hello. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Yes, I know, I was gone for a while. In case any of you were actually wondering where I'd kind of vanished off to, I just happen to have a lot going on school-wise and I haven't found a morsel of motivation or energy, okay? It was gone, evaporated, turned to dust, Thanos snapped, okay? So, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna overdo things, because I personally tend to suffer from burnout, really quick, and that's not good for anybody. So I kind of had to put my schoolwork first before, the serotonin-inducing YouTube channel, which is very sad, because I missed all of you. You guys are all so slay. I love you. Was it silly of me? Was it goofy of me? Yes it was. Will it happen again? Most likely. Disclaimer time. So before I discuss the layout of my video, I just want to say that I'm not a licensed professional, so what I'm discussing in my videos as a result aren't always the most accurate and should absolutely not be used to self-diagnose. A lot of what I talk about are my own headcanons based off of the research I do, and yes, that research is going to be listed at the end for anyone curious or for anyone who wants to check out the sources. If anything I mention is canon, I'll show the proof. Trigger warning for mentions of anxiety, childhood neglect, and overall subject matter pertaining to mental health. If you are triggered by these topics, I'd recommend finding something else to watch. Of course, I'm not a perfect individual, so if you do notice anything I got incorrect, please leave a comment and I'll pin it, because I'm a proud mom against misinformation. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and on with the rest of the video.
If you are a newcomer to my channel, I would like to say hi. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Out of all the videos you could have picked, it was mine, and I'm so grateful for that. I like to organize my videos in a specific layout, just so that you don't go into a video with an expectation only to realize halfway through it that that's not the way the video's gonna go, because I have that all the time. It is one of my pet peeves on YouTube, and I don't want you to deal with that, because I'm sure you have the same thing. So I'm gonna lay out what my video's gonna look like for you.
So, when analyzing Leo, here's how I'll go about it. 1. First things first, behavior. Initially, what speaks the most about a person is how they behave and act, and this definitely applies to characters too. Psychologically speaking, behavior is a huge indicator on how someone thinks or how their mind works. What I mean by analysis here is that certain habits or behaviors can be signs of specific mental health conditions. 2. Once we've figured out why someone does the things they do, the automatic question after is what caused it. So here we're delving into possible roots, both genetic and environmental, for behavioral traits or mental health disorders. 3. After this, we'll quickly discuss how the person, in this case Leo, may be affected emotionally by everything mentioned here. With all this said, let's dive in.
So there's one thing immediately in Leo's personality and Leo's behavior that really speaks to me, it really stands out, and it's stood out to a lot of other people too. It's a very popular, widely discussed topic in the 2012 TMNT fandom, actually. And that is Leo's maturity level. He is insanely mature for his age. He is 15 and he acts like he's in his 20s, maybe even 30s, okay? This is Rise Raph's scenario where, he's taken a lot of responsibilities and he's micromanaging a lot of stuff. That's Rise Raph scenario turned up to 11, turned up to 100 even. It is just insane.
Leonardo, he is the leader. He's the leader in blue, does anything it takes to get his ninjas through. You know what I mean? He micromanages his strategies, he micromanages his plans, and he is that primary voice of reason. Yes, they go to Splinter for a lot of stuff, but that's usually after things escalate. After whatever the situation is gets so intense that it distracts the boys from something as serious as a fight with the enemy. Go to nearly any, and I mean any 2012 TMNT episode, Leo will always try to redirect the behavior first, and he offers these logical solutions to the issues, or he just points out how immature one or two of the parties are being. It never works, clearly, because they keep brushing him off. But Leo still actively tries to de-escalate issues between his brothers, whether the problems themselves involve him or not. He will involve their problems in his own life. He will make whatever the problem is his problem. What I personally believe is going on here is emotional parentification. As the source suggests, this is when a child replaces the parent or guardian as the emotional anchor for the family. So this could include the parent or guardian, or this could be specifically the other children in the family, or it could be all of the above. And I think it's safe to say that to some extent, Leo has taken the role and tries time and time again to be that anchor to his brothers, even if they do brush him off a lot. Another thing that is heavily apparent in Leo's behavior is his need for perfection. Like, it's clear as day that this dude struggles hardcore with perfectionism. Literally, how does he keep getting relatable? This is concerning.
Anyways, he considers his brother's well-being like his number one priority over himself, right? And he sort of refuses to accept anything other than success. He cannot cope with failure. He cannot deal with failure because he doesn't accept failure as an option, right? Which is very, very unhealthy. And it gets to a point where when he can't be the idolized leader he so envisions himself to be, he absolutely snaps and he immediately goes down this rabbit hole of self-deprecation. He feels like he's failed.
A prime example of this is the season 2 finale in the early season 3, when Leo's brutally beaten, and I mean like he is thrown through a window. And he really seems to struggle with the fact that he needs to take time to recover from these really intense injuries. And he really feels incompetent and ashamed of himself for something completely out of his control. This event and his overall behavior parallels the symptoms of perfectionism listed by the source. He expects nothing but perfection from himself, which leads him to think he's unfit to be leader when he can't meet his own unrealistic expectations.
When we are met with behavior like I have stated beforehand with Leo, it clearly has to stem from somewhere. And where I think it stemmed from is a form of emotional neglect from Splinter. And yes, I know I'm about to have all the stands come after me. Splinter was the best dad, yada 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 yada. I know. He was a good dad. I'm not saying he was a horrible dad. But what he did do is not give his sons the emotional support they needed. Splinter is a crutch when his sons come to him for advice. But this advice sort of sucks. It helps with battle, but that's about the only thing it's good for, right? His sons come to him with an emotional issue. They're like, Dad, I'm dealing with this. How do I feel better? And Splinter goes, my sons, this is how you become a ninja warrior. This is how you turn your trauma, you turn your emotional issue into helping you fight. And yes, it does help them fight, and they kick butt, and they win. But their emotional issues still stand. And this might be why some of the character development in TMNT 2012 wasn't the greatest. Why some of the boys would just go back to their habits after an episode or two of, like, coming to a realization. Because Splinter's advice didn't stick on an emotional level. It stuck on the battlefield.
A really, really good example of this that comes to mind immediately is the episode Turtle Temper. It's very early season 1. Raph pretty much has his, his temper, his issues with his anger, and he's trying to explain it to Master Splinter. But Bestie Splinter responds like this. So here's the episode's transcript. If you want to see the transcript from any 2012 TMNT episode, you can find it on turtlepedia.fandom.com. So here's the scene I'm talking about here, where Raph explains, it wasn't your fault, Shredder insulted you, you had no choice, in reference to Splinter lashing out and fighting against the Shredder in earlier days, and he believes it's to be the cause of the loss of Tang Shen, his wife. So Raph says this because he himself believes that he can't control his anger, or he finds his anger really hard to control and manage. So when he gets really hurt by something someone says or does, he can't help but lash out. Splinter pretty much responds by, well, I let him make me angry. I chose to be angry. Which necessarily isn't the way to go about things. you don't internalize your emotions, right? It's very negative, very harmful of an effect, because eventually you will blow up again. And so this might help Raph short term, but it won't help him long term, which came into effect as this only seemed to help him out for this specific episode, and then in the episodes after, he was right back to being angry easy again. So here's a great example of that taking place. While Splinter has done his best as a father, there are clearly some things that he just can't accomplish, and meeting the needs of his sons emotionally seems to be one of them. According to this source, childhood emotional neglect can have long-term effects. These effects include struggles with reliance on anyone but yourself, and on top of this, struggling to discipline yourself healthily. There's also a tendency to feel guilty or ashamed of yourself and to feel as if there's something wrong with you at your core. And this sounds an awful lot like Leo's situation.
As for Leo's parentification, I sort of feel like he does that because of the neglect, right? He's seen, some of the emotional neglect going on. He might have caught on to that at a young age and decided to step in and be that emotional anchor. But I think there's a little more than parentification at play, because he really, really, really has an issue with this overthinking when it comes to, worrying about his brother's well-being. And it gets to the point where he gets really, really, upset when the others disagree with him on certain things, especially when it comes to, managing battle stuff. When they disagree with him on that, or when they disagree with him on blatantly on something emotional, they're trying to say you don't know anything about me, that kind of a thing, where they get defensive when he's just trying to help. He gets annoyed at that too. And he's just constantly thinking about how to protect his siblings.
I think what we could be seeing is generalized anxiety. He's constantly stressed about his siblings to an unnecessary extent, when logically they've had the same training as him and they can easily fight for themselves. He seems to internalize a lot of this until he snaps, which is why we only really see his parentification. He never outright shows any of his anxiety symptoms and keeps them to himself.
Now that we understand some of the roots of his behavioral traits and some of the behavioral traits he has, I think it's time to look into some of the emotional effects he may deal with because of them. Anxiety is constant stress, constant pressure, and there's very rarely time for you to actually feel calm. Leo has this, and we can see he's on edge a lot of the time. He doesn't really seem to be able to calm down unless he's engaging in a task or engaging in something he really, really likes. And there's also that perfectionism, right? Where it's a very risky game to play when you overachieve or try to overachieve, because you're inevitably going to fail, and then when you fail, you dig yourself down this deep, deep hole of bad self-esteem. And so Leo probably comes to gripes with a lot of his self-esteem, and we see it time and time again play out where he goes, I've failed, or I don't think I'm cut out to be a leader, I'm not a good leader. Due to this cocktail of mental health conditions and maladaptive habits, he is just surrounded by this cloud of negativity and this cloud of concern. You just know that this man would be lying in his bed, sobbing his eyes out at 3 a.m. to Taylor Swift's Antihero, okay? It's him. Hi, he's the problem, it's him. You know what I mean?
So anyways, that about does it. Here's the summary for today's video. 1. Leo has immense perfectionism and even has some parentification going on. 2. Upon closer inspection, the perfectionism stems from underlying anxiety. This and the parentification could also be due to emotional neglect in childhood. 3. This ultimately results in constant worry and low self-esteem being how Leo typically feels. And that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. These are all the sources that I used. You can easily find them via Google. Just search them up, you know what I mean. Feel free to research them on your own time if you're a little more curious about what I've discussed. And yeah, that pretty much sums everything up. Again, thank you so much for watching. My analytics show me that a lot of people kind of just click on my videos, see maybe 30 seconds ago, oh, heck no, this is cringe, and then click off. So thank you so much for watching if you did make it to the end. I love you very much. yeah, I hope you're having a good day or good night. You know, wherever you are, I hope you're doing well, you're thriving. Remember that even if you didn't do too much today, you still survived, and that's enough. Love you. Have a good day or night wherever you are. Stay safe.